This is Beyond Borders, the Immigration Evaluation Podcast, where you'll learn how to confidently conduct evaluations, connect with attorneys to gain referrals, and create a thriving practice. I'm Dr. Mariella Shibley, and I am here to help you turn your expertise into impact. Let's get started. Today, we are talking about one of the most common questions that I get from colleagues who are new to immigration evaluations. How do I decide how much to charge? Setting fees can be tricky. You want to be compensated fairly for your time, your expertise, and effort. But at the same time, you know many of the people seeking immigration evaluations already have significant financial challenges. So how do you find that balance? And that's what we're going to cover today. By the end of this episode, you'll have some practical strategies for setting your fees, tips on managing payment plans and rush requests, and even some thoughts on pro bono work. So grab your coffee and let's get started. Let's start with the big question. How do you decide what to charge? There is no one-size-fits-all answer here, but there are a few methods that you can use to help you decide on a fair fee. One of the easiest ways is to research what others in your area are charging. Many mental health professionals who offer immigration evaluations list their fees on their websites, so spend some time browsing online and you'll get a good sense of the range in your local market. Now, I want to take a quick moment to address a common concern. Does checking what others charge violate antitrust laws? And the short answer is no. Antitrust laws exist to prevent businesses from colluding to set prices in a way that reduces competition. So as long as you're independently determining your own rates based on market research rather than coordinating with others to fix prices, you're not violating any laws. So gathering publicly available information to make informed business decisions is completely legal and, in fact, a smart practice. Now, with that said, pricing should reflect your skills, experience, and the value you bring to your clients. So let's explore another approach, charging based on your hourly rate. On the surface, this seems like a logical approach, especially if you've been using this model in other areas of your practice. But there's one big downside. When you're just starting out with immigration evaluations, you'll naturally take longer to complete them. Writing, reviewing, finalizing your reports will feel slow at first because you're still learning the process. So charging by the hour can result in a super high bill for your client. And as you gain experience and speed, it can mean you'll earn less for doing the same work. And that doesn't make any sense, right? You shouldn't charge more when you have less experience and take longer to complete a report. And then you definitely shouldn't charge less once you've become more efficient and skilled. Your expertise increases over time. So it makes your evaluations more valuable, not less. So what's the solution? One of the most practical ways to set your fees is to charge a flat rate based on the time that it typically takes you to complete an evaluation. This rate should include everything from the clinical interview to writing and finalizing the report. But remember, not all evaluations will take the same amount of time. Several factors can affect how long the process will be, and it's important to account for these when you're determining your fees. Taking a history from a 65-year-old, for example, is usually more time-consuming than taking one from a 19-year-old, because older clients tend to have more life experiences to discuss. Clients with complex trauma, they may require sometimes more than one session to gather their story at a pace that feels safe and comfortable for them. So rushing this process isn't just ineffective, it can be harmful. Some psychological instruments require additional time for scoring and interpretation. So if you use tools like the MMPI or the PAI, you may also need to factor in additional costs for scoring the reports. Occasionally, you'll need to evaluate more than one person for the same case, like siblings or both parents, which will naturally take significantly longer. And then lastly, if you're working with an interpreter, expect the interview to take twice as long. Also, you're going to have to decide whether the client will cover the interpreter's fee or if that will be included in your rate. People do different things here, whatever works for you. So because of all these variables, it often makes sense to charge different flat fees based on the type of the evaluation. So a hardship waiver, for example, might require less time and detail compared to an asylum evaluation, which typically involves a more extensive interview, in-depth trauma assessment, and sometimes a longer report. Similarly, evaluations that involve multiple clients or specialized psychological testing can also justify a higher rate. So by structuring your fees this way, you ensure that your pricing reflects the time, effort, and expertise required for each type of evaluation, rather than using a one-size-fits-all approach that could leave you undercharging for complex cases or overcharging for simpler ones. If you're ready to grow your income and impact, head to the link in the description box to learn more about my training program. For now, let's get back into the episode. Now let's shift gears a bit and talk about the broader financial picture for many clients. Navigating the immigration system is not only emotionally taxing, but it's also incredibly expensive. When you factor in attorney's fees, filing costs, other necessary expenses, an immigration case can easily cost thousands of dollars. And many clients find themselves in a very difficult cycle because their immigration status limits their job opportunities. They struggle to save enough money to move their case forward, and as a result, the process becomes drawn out, with clients paying for each step as they can afford it, sometimes over the course of several years. This financial strain is why offering a payment plan can make a significant difference. Many clients simply don't have the ability to pay the full cost of an evaluation upfront. But breaking it into manageable payments allows them to access the services that they need without creating an additional financial hardship. In my practice, we typically require half of the fee upfront, with the remaining balance paid in small installments or as a lump sum at a later date. This approach not only makes evaluations more accessible, but it also ensures that everyone's fairly compensated for our time and expertise. One word of caution also: be very clear about your payment policies upfront when you're talking with the client over the phone, when you schedule the appointment. Some clients assume that the cost of their evaluation is already covered in their attorney's fees, and that can lead to some awkward situations. I've had people show up for their appointment thinking that everything was paid for. So to avoid that kind of confusion, we now collect at least half of the payment before starting the interview. And it's a simple step, but it saves you from a lot of potential headaches. Plus, it sets the expectation up front so there are no surprises for you or for your client. Now let's talk about rush fees. There are times when clients need their report yesterday, usually because they're responding to a request for evidence, an RFE, or a notice of intent to deny, which have a strict deadline. Other times, well, let's be honest, it's just procrastination on the client's part. But either way, most mental health professionals who offer immigration evaluations have a standard turnaround time of about 2 weeks. Some people prefer to complete the process in one dedicated day, conducting the interview in the morning and then writing the report in the afternoon, while others spread it out over multiple sessions. Either way, completing a high-quality evaluation takes time, and rushing the process means rearranging your schedule, perhaps canceling other commitments or working extra hours to get it done. So if a client asks for a faster turnaround, it's completely reasonable to charge a rush fee. But how much should you charge? Doubling your fee might feel excessive, but you do want to set a rate that reflects the inconvenience and the extra effort involved. So a good rule of thumb is to charge an additional 20 to 50% of your standard rate, depending on how quickly they need it. So for example, if your normal fee is $1,000 and your usual turnaround is 2 weeks, you might charge an extra $200 to $500 for a report needed within 3 to 5 days. If they need it next day, then you may want to charge on the higher end of that range. Whatever you decide, the key is to be upfront about your standard timeline and your rush fee policy. So that way, clients can plan ahead when possible, and when they can't, then they'll understand why they're paying extra. Because the expensive immigration processes can be such a barrier, many mental health professionals choose to take on a limited number of pro bono or reduced fee cases. Now, let's be clear, this is a personal choice. Not offering pro bono or reduced fee cases doesn't make you greedy or insensitive, because even professionals working at nonprofit agencies typically reserve government funding or grants to support their work. At the same time, if you're in a position to do so, offering pro bono services can be incredibly impactful. It's a way to give back and to support clients who truly have no financial means to pay. You can set your own limits, though. Maybe 1 or 2 pro bono cases a year, or a discount for those who need it most. You can screen them with the federal poverty guidelines, however it works for you. If you're just starting out in immigration evaluations, actually offering a few pro bono cases can really benefit you as well. It gives you hands-on experience, it helps you refine your process, and it builds your confidence without the pressure of charging full price right away. Plus, it can be a great way to start making connections with immigration attorneys. When they see the quality of your work, they're more likely to refer paying clients to you in the future. A great way to find pro bono opportunities, you can reach out to local nonprofit organizations that serve immigrants. Many of these groups struggle to find mental health professionals who can provide evaluations for their clients. So by offering your services, you not only help individuals in need, but you also start building relationships with organizations and attorneys who may become long-term referral sources for your practice. So while pro bono work isn't a requirement, it can be a win-win, supporting your community while also helping you gain valuable experience and connections as you grow your practice. So to wrap up, research what others are charging, but consider a flat fee over an hourly wage. Be transparent about your payment policies and consider offering payment plans. Charge rush fees when appropriate. And if possible, think about offering occasional pro bono work. Thank you so much for listening. I hope this episode gave you some clarity on setting fees for immigration evaluations. If you found it helpful, don't forget to subscribe and share it with your colleagues. That's a wrap up for today. If you enjoyed this episode, share it with a fellow mental health provider who needs to hear it. And if you haven't already, hit subscribe so you don't miss my next episode.